how are you?
Hey, Heather.
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thanks a bunch.
So we are streaming live now on YouTube. So with that, I will call the special meeting of Prescott Town Council to order for August 10th, 2020, and move on immediately to item 2, approval of the agenda. The recommendation of the agenda of the special council meeting of August 10th, 2020 be approved as presented. Do I have a motion? Moved by Councilor Ostrander, seconded by Councilor Young. Any discussion on the agenda tonight? Seeing no, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any member of council have a declaration of interest this evening? Seeing none, we'll move right along. So item 4, delegations, and we do have 2 delegations tonight. Because of the length of the agenda and just standard rules, we do limit these to 10 minutes. I will note that it's just a presentation tonight. There'll be no decisions made on 4.1. We'll take the information back. Council will get the opportunity to ask questions and if they have any need for clarification, any of the items. But otherwise, we will be bringing this forward back to the next council meeting in September for full discussion and review. So with that, we'll move on to item 4.1. I'd like to welcome Heather Mackay, who is I guess the leader of the delegation on the Boundary Street parking issue. So thanks a lot for joining us tonight, Heather. Sorry, it's virtual, but everything still is, we're still zooming away here with everything. So at any rate, I'll turn it over to you now, and please take us through your presentation.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate the introduction, and hi, everybody. Good to be here, but not happy on why, of course. I'm not necessarily the leader of the block, but I've been delegated to represent them, so I'm going to do the best I can for them. Will I assume that everyone has seen the letters that were submitted by a handful of persons? Yes?
Yes, it was distributed to all members of council.
Okay, good enough. A quick note on that is, just for the record, I mean, what we're talking about is the proposed non-parking on the west side of Boundary Street from Dibble Street to King Street. Everyone has made us well aware of the purpose and why they think that it's important, but we do tend to disagree just because of our long time being here, and I guess we just basically disagree with the decision, but appreciate that you're going to give us a chance to air our views through me, I guess. What we're looking at is an older section of Boundary Street that doesn't necessarily accommodate more than one car. And I've had the pleasure and privilege of having Mr. Merriman and Matthew come and visit me, and we've had discussions and we've had a look at everything. I'm not sure of the direction that we can go with this to accommodate everyone, of course, and I do understand that you're thinking it's a safety issue. I do have people with me, for the record, from the block, plus I have some people that live beside me that are in British Columbia that have joined us. We're not necessarily agreeing that there's a safety issue, but convince us. I'm thinking that maybe there would be an alternative to what's proposed, perhaps a closure of part of the street to the north or part of the street to the south, possibly better signage for yield to oncoming traffic, or other, I don't know, variations of signage, or we even discussed possibly a one-way on the street seasonal that might veer the traffic towards the downtown core, which is something that's always, would be a good idea, I guess. But I guess that's not something that can happen because it is considered one of the 3 main arteries to the north-south. I was asked to just make a point by our neighbors, if you just entertain me with that. At one point we'd like to make is we are new to Prescott. This has been going on for 5 years, and I guess we were supposed to read 5 years of minutes to figure it out. Council was negligent in not informing us of the proposed bylaw change. The lack of response from all but one councillor was rather disheartening. I was asked to read that, so I've done it. I think the main issue basically is quality of life for us. Our visitors, our senior family members, our children being dropped off, groceries. In my case, I also have clients that come to my door, and I'm not seeing how it would be feasible for me to entertain the thought, as with everyone, of driving a block or two to either pick them up or to have them walk down. I mean, in the summer, it's all nice and lovely, but let's think about the winter. And also to little things like, where are we to park to clear driveways? Now, we're very respectful of the 11 to 7 rule in the winter, but we're dealing with frozen lawns and things at that point. I'm not sure where else we can go with all of this, but we need to realize that we do have the neighbors on this block, although short, are all against this. They've given myself or the other people here the impression that this is not something that they want. If there's anyone that I'm speaking for that has said it elsewhere or elsewise, I'm not aware of that. I know that you said it was a safety issue, but what we're also aware of is that the ambulance and EMS services travel south to north, very rarely north to south. That being said, that lane is never blocked. And with an emergency ambulance coming with lights and sirens or whatever towards you, I would think that the drivers going north to south would have proper courtesy and obey the rules of the road enough to give them access and, you know, lean on them. We've had a lot of issues with speeding. Fortunately, we really haven't had any serious accidents on this road. And I mean, I hate to show my age, but I lived at 579 for ages, 550 for ages, and now down here for about 20 years. So if you want to ask anybody about Boundary Street, I think maybe I'd be the one to do it. Anyway, we appreciate the efforts, but I think that just even not notifying us before the decision was made was, I don't know how else to say it other than that was not cool. But I don't know. Is there anything else that you guys want to?
You were saying something about seniors. My parents, they tend to come for visits here and there. My father has COPD and can barely walk 10 feet.
So again, we're getting back to the point that we have children and seniors that visit us with family, and basically expecting them to walk a block or two is just really not feasible. I mean, we're happy to try to figure this out with you, but to just be strict no parking, I think is probably not a good way to go. That's just my feeling. Also, to the vehicles parked on the west side of the street tend to deter a lot of the speeding that goes on down the street. Perhaps a better yield to oncoming traffic. I don't know what else to say. We would like this to be reconsidered.
I'd like to talk about the street from Dibble Street down was built unsafe. It was brought to the attention of the town engineer at the time. He was retiring in a couple of months and he wouldn't do anything.
Okay,
I
so
worked as a quality insurance inspector in many towns putting sewer, curb and gutter and subgradient. That's why I talked to him. And the traffic has to be slowed down because sometimes you get 3 inches of water going down the street because it drains for 6 blocks.
yeah, there is an issue of water on our street. I'm not familiar with the building of streets, of course. Bill Craig is, and he did say that he brought it to the attention of someone, but it wasn't dealt with properly. That I get that that's another issue. But we do have a substantial amount of water pouring down the street underneath the vehicles, I may add, when there is a severe rainstorm. So that may be a point that should be brought up at a later time, I think. But right now we need to deal with the fact that we would like you guys to reconsider the decision that was made without consideration to us or even, I get that you guys post in the Prescott Journal and that we're always able to attend the meetings online and so on. But frankly, I don't know a lot of people who do, including myself. But I would, if my property had something to do with it. I'd also like to add that as a broker realtor, you really are, contrary to what you might think, interfering with our property values. It's going to be really hard to sell a property where you have to tell them, sorry about your grandma, but she's got to park up the street. I don't know what else to say. And you're interfering with our point of view and our location. And I don't know, you know.
And the other thing I would like to talk about in the winter time, where there hasn't been a major accident yet, but there's 30 to 50 cars slide across number 2 every winter
Mm,
because of speed coming down the street
mhm,
and it's not salted enough.
mhm. There is an issue, according to Bill, with, he lives further down the block than me, just so you know. He's second up from King Street. There is an issue in the winter of cars sliding down that last part of the street, and apparently it has to do with the embankments and stuff of the road, never mind the maintenance, which I'm not complaining about, but maybe that needs to be addressed as well.
Well, thanks.
Oh,
Thanks
I have
for,
a comment. It's because we weren't parked there in the winter to slow them down. But anyway, I really appreciate that Matt came to see me. Thank you, Matt. And I appreciate that Sean came to see me a couple of times. I appreciate that as well. The first time they came to see me, I might have been a little bit surly, and I did warn them that I was probably the nicer one of the bunch. So I appreciate that. In any event, please consider, reconsider, I guess, and if you would be so kind as to keep us all up to speed.
thanks very much, Heather, and thanks to all the neighbors, to the Kavanaughs here on the line here tonight as well. And everyone also at your house, thanks so much for coming forward to us. I will say that I did respond immediately to everyone who'd contacted.
Yes, you did. I will say that you did, Brad. I appreciate that.
So did want to make sure, and staff did respond immediately. Just want to go to staff very briefly here, because I'm sure there'll be some media attention to this. And this isn't a back and forth tonight, but I just did want to underline the public process that was involved here. And I know you can say that, we didn't contact the people directly on the street, and that's a valid criticism, of course, but there was an attempt to really extensively get this out there to the town as a whole. Ms. Castleman, is it possible you could just go over, or Lindsay, one of the two, that you could just go over that timeline very briefly, just so everyone's aware of what the process was here that led us to this point, just so we capture that history?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the timeline at my desktop at the moment, but in general, a working group was formed, I believe at the beginning of this term, and there had already been a working group formed to deal with the parking bylaw the previous term as well. So there was multiple working group meetings with Sean, multiple reports that came through council. There was a public survey that was released too. Matthew, I believe there was about 500 responses to that, but it did talk about parking at private residences on private streets as well. And that also came back to council as well. So there was a public process, but you're right, there was no direct notification to the residents on Boundary Street.
On that section of Boundary. Matthew, anything else on that? I just want to make sure that's captured there, because I know there was a strong effort by staff and council to make sure this entire process was very transparent.
Absolutely. And following up on Clerk Castleman's comments, absolutely, I believe there was 4 or 5 meetings of the working group that discussed various items throughout all of town, taking a look at the responses from the survey, which I believe had about 200 responses, and then taking a look at what are the possible remedies for those risks that were identified. So certainly school buses were discussed, commercial vehicles were discussed, EMS, both paramedic as well as our fire service were consulted. To really identify where are the risk points, where are the pinch points where it makes it difficult to traverse streets, and what are the possible alternatives that we could implement. So certainly there was the public survey, there was the 4 or 5 task force meetings, and then it was discussed, I believe, over 4 different committee and council meetings. So Certainly, that was the breadth of the conversation. I believe both the Recorder and the South Grenville Journal did articles once it was passed as well, and so we felt in that case the public engagement side had been addressed.
Thanks very much, Matthew. So I'll open it up for council now, and I will lean on the expertise of those that were involved in the working group. And I believe it was councilors Burton, McConnell, and Young. Am I correct? That were members of that group, or am I? Because I know we've done this a couple of times now, so I get the membership mixed up. Are those the three councilors that were part of that group, or was there
No,
somebody?
we were on the last group, Brett.
Oh, okay. So who was on this one again?
The three that you named.
Oh, okay. So that is the three that were on this. So anyways, I'll open it up for council if any comments or questions on this this evening. As I understand, it was obviously discussed at those 4 or 5 meetings. So I'll open it up if anyone has any comments.
Well, I think we can reconsider it and satisfy the neighbors. The object of the exercise was to open up the bottom of the street. As Bill and I had talked about with you, the mayor, the danger of the buses coming around that corner and not being able to continue up the street in the winter time when that street is ice, that was one of the concerns. But I think a lot of good points have been made about obviously where do the neighbors park and where do the friends of people park? How do they get into the home? They're all excellent points, and I'm sorry that we didn't consider them at the time. I think we can move forward by not doing anything at this point, not putting up the signs and not enforcing the new bylaw until we get a chance to reconsider it. The other lesson I think we've learned, although we try not to spend the extra money to notify all the people. In this case, there were 9 properties up that street?
Actually 6.
6. So, that wouldn't have been a big deal to notify them. And that's probably a lesson learned for the next time we tackle something like this.
I appreciate that, Ray.
Thanks very much, Councillor Young. Further comments, questions, members of council? I've got Councillor Burton, then McConnell, then Jansman, please.
Thank you. I was on the parking committee as well with Ray and Mike, and one of the things we looked at too is the safety concern. And like you said, Heather, safety is definitely a concern on any street, right? And definitely we'll need to do our due diligence and move forward. And like Councillor Young said, and do what's best for the neighborhood, and we can only learn from this. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McConnell, please.
Oh, thanks, Mayor Todd. I'm glad Leanne mentioned who was on that committee, because you indicated me and I don't ever recall being on that committee. But the long and the short of it is, what the committee looked at was the safety issue, or one of the things they looked at was the safety issue at the intersection of Dibble and Boundary. And unfortunately, the house that's on that would be the southwest corner of that intersection, I know that as the Art and Pat Kirkby house for many years, really is right on Boundary Street. So in order for, if somebody parked beside it, in order to see who's coming north, you really have to get the front end of your car over halfway out onto Boundary Street. And that's not a safety thing. And that's the safety issue that we were looking at, or that council looked at the time. The other unfortunate part of this is the other side of the street is a golf club, and anybody that values their car is not going to park it on the east side of Boundary Street. That would be a simple thing if we just said, okay, everybody park their car on the east side of the street, Then if you're coming on to Boundary on Dibble, there's no problem. You can see right down the street, but I'm sure people that live there value their vehicle as I do, and they're not gonna park it on the side where the golf club is, or they're gonna wind up with dents sooner or later, or broken windows. So there's two things there, the house on the corner, the golf club across the road. But one of the things that never occurred to me until this afternoon, and I emailed our treasurer and asked her if she could look into it, but it was a little late to do it, to check with the OPP and get an accident report on the corner of Boundary and Dibble, to see what kind of damage has been done there over the years. If there hasn't been any damage done there over the years, well, that's one thing. If it's been the site of a lot of accidents, that's another thing. When the rink was running full force, if you're heading east out of town, that's a main intersection, because you go east from the rink to Boundary, down Boundary to King, and you're gone. Since the rink is not operating there and never will again as an arena with the quantity of people, that may very well have a bearing on that corner as well. So I think we need to take the OPP accident report into consideration, which I'm sure we will get within the next few weeks before we meet again in September. And it's tough to tell people you can't park in front of your own house. I mean, I wouldn't be too happy if somebody said all of a sudden I can't park in front of my house. So I think it's certainly worth looking at again. And as most of us know, bylaws are complaint driven. If you didn't have complaints, you wouldn't have bylaws. And the changing of bylaws is usually complaint driven as well. So if we have some complaints about this bylaw that we have drafted, well, then we'll take another look at it. And I think that's where we're going to be when we look at it again in September. Thank you very much, Mayor Todd.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. Councillor Jansman, please.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Thank you, Heather, for this delegation. As you know, I support what your all your points, and as I voted against this when it did come up, but I was going to just mention exactly what Lee mentioned, and I liked how you kind of described maybe alternatives, and what to build on what Lee was saying. That house on the south side, when you're trying to turn left or right from Dibble onto Boundary, there's even, we can't do too much about the house, but there's even trees and shrubbery that could be looked at to help having to bring your car up onto Boundary. So, and yeah, and the school bus, perhaps they can use another route than going up, using Boundary, going up north. So anyway, thank you for your delegation. The good news is that there is a part of this process that does allow for reconsideration. Thank you.
Very much, Councillor Jansman. Any further comments from members of council? I see Councillor Shankar and Councillor McConnell with one more. Gory, please.
Yes, so I just wanted to say that, this is a learning experience for all of us. We put these working groups together. They work hard on it. They don't take it lightly. They have 4 or 5 meetings. They come up with a suggestion, and council approves it or disapproves it. We shouldn't really be talking about how we voted on it, but it was approved. Now, having said that, we've learned from this situation that in the future, maybe we should go and talk to the neighbors that any bylaw changes that occur will affect. And I agree with that. And, unfortunately, Heather, it went on Facebook and went viral. Probably not the best way to do it, but it did get everyone's attention. So I know I didn't respond to it just because I don't want to start responding to everything on Facebook. If you notice, there's probably complaints every day on Facebook now about the town. So probably not the best way to do it. And now we have, we see doing it this way, having a delegation, having your 10 minutes or longer, having us reconsider it, I think that's the best way. We learned from it. We learned how it is an inconvenience to the neighborhood. I mean, the main reason was safety. That's what it was all about. We got a request from the school bus drivers saying it wasn't safe, but you know, you made some good points that there's other ways of looking at it. You know, whether it's one way or seasonal, I thought that was a good idea. Just something that maybe we never thought of, and it opens our eyes a little bit. So it's a learning experience for all of us, and we'll move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shankar. Councillor McConnell, you had a comment?
Yeah, something just occurred to me after I shut my mouth earlier, but one thing that somebody commented on, and I wasn't sure whether it was Heather or Mr. Craig, but the speed of cars coming down that street. Not long ago, council voted to reduce the speed of cars in town from 50 to 40 kilometers per hour. That's not to say that everybody is going to do that on Boundary Street, but
It's been 40 on Boundary for 10 years now, Lee.
really?
Yeah, 2011.
Well, then I guess that's not going to have any effect at all. Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much, Lee. Anyone else with a comment tonight? Seeing none, just want to thank all the residents for coming forward on this. Great to hear from you on this issue. The one thing I will add, I mean, I just by my own perspective, I had some qualms about this initially and voted against it early on. I know Gory made a good point about not talking about the voting on it, but it is the truth. There has been, and that's just to say that all of us took this very seriously. But I think we were all swayed in the end by voting for it because it was the safety issue that we were looking at there, and that was the issue with some of the other. Like there's another part of this as well that was part of Dibble Street, where it's very narrow, where we are restricting parking there as well. So that's there's another shoe that may drop on this one with residents there. So one of the things I will say, and one of the things we get back to, public consultation and so forth, and where it's something when it's localized and specialized like this, should we have talked directly to the 6-7 properties affected? Absolutely. But it makes us difficult to pass almost any bylaw if we're going to actually go out in quite that manner, simply because we're always going to find someone that's going to oppose bylaw changes like that. So that I just want to defend the process on that a little bit here. And the other thing is I want to hear back from staff. I want to really look at this before we make the final decision to tweak this. I've already indicated that I'm in full favor of, if it's a school bus issue, maybe there's certain times of the day there's no parking there. I mean, I think there's ways we can address this to fine tune it that works well for everyone. But at the same time, I mean, we did move into this. Nobody wanted to make changes like this, but it did arise because of safety concerns that were raised. I don't think anybody wanted to do this, and certainly no one wants to inconvenience any of the neighbors. And I'd have the same reaction as well with someone telling me I couldn't park in front of my place. So I think we'll definitely take a real good serious look at this, but just want to take a look at the safety concerns again, look at what comes back. I think there are ways we can accommodate everyone here and move this forward in a way that everyone's going to be satisfied. But let's bring this back in September, and we'll take a real good look at it. It'll come back to council then. So I'm assuming everyone on council is fine with staff direction to bring this back to our meeting in September, our first meeting in September. Seeing some nodding heads. So I think that's the way we'll go. If any other information comes forward with neighbors, though, please don't hesitate to email us and let us know if anything else comes up that we need to consider. But thanks again for coming forward tonight with this. And the other issue is Ray and I did run into Bill down at the post office the other day, and I've always known there was a bit of a water issue down there. I didn't know that it was actually directly related to some road work that was done, because obviously that was quite a little while ago. If I know who was talking about retiring. That's quite some time ago now. So if we could leave that with staff to take a look at as well, whatever that road condition is, so we can look at that and try to get that resolved for you guys as well, because that's obviously something that's long standing from what Bill says. So we'll take a good look at that as well. And if you've got any more information on that issue as well, please forward it on to staff so we can really help look after that as well. So we'll do.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for the audience and the consideration, and I appreciate you allowing us to participate tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you all for coming forward. And again, we'll bring this back in September and look at some options. And so stay tuned. We're not implementing anything right now, obviously. So we'll be back in September for some final deliberation on that and see how we can move this forward in a way that works for everyone. Thanks again for attending tonight. Take care, folks. Have a great night. So on to item 4.2, we do have another presentation tonight, welcoming Mike LaRose, the Fort Town Night Run. Thanks so much for joining us this evening, Mike. Really excited about the Fort Town Night Run coming up. So please take it away and let us know what's coming up in September.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear me right now. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So the Fort Town Night Run had a massive change, of course. March 15th, we made the decision to postpone it. When we postponed it to September 26th, my first job was to actually create safety protocols. Interestingly enough, I went to everybody from race directors that I knew, the Ottawa Run, Army Run, Boston Marathon, Toronto Waterfront Marathon. We looked at everybody that was basically doing stuff, and even Athletics Ontario, and literally everybody was stunned. They didn't know what to do. And I thought, you know what, let's start with our run. You know, there's got to be something we can do at a small scale, and it'll kind of advance the field. So I created a 30-page document, which I believe you've all received. And really it was, you know, kind of simplifying from having a crowded event to a crowdless event. So the most important thing was to just not have a crowd at all. And there was a few key issues that made that happen. One is getting away the vendors, getting away from all those different tables, simplifying and streamlining how people get in, how people get out, and allowing people to then have the run was very important. Number two also was the idea of we don't want a crowd of people, so registration includes this idea of a time lapse so that everybody's scheduled. And so everybody, there's 2 people every 2.5 minutes that is leaving on the course, meaning that every
Mike,
hour.
can I just ask everyone not speaking now, can you just mute your mics, please? There's a lot of interference coming through. Just hit the space bar and it should be good. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. And so with everybody being 2.5 minutes for 2 people on an hour, we don't have more than 48 people on the 15-kilometer spread. The Fort Wellington is on board. The Port of Johnstown is on board. Battle of the Windmill, Friends of the Battle of the Windmill are on board. The beauty was that everybody quickly got on board, and we kept modifying the safety protocols as we went. I believe at one time I had a table for food and for water. We eliminated that and decided to actually, we're just going to give it as a bag. So that way, you know, you'll get your swag bag, you get your snack bag. Definitely you have all that information in front of you. Tonight, what am I asking for? Like every other year, we're just basically recapturing the meeting we had in March. So basically, Matthew was fantastic. The minute I said that we have to postpone, automatically said, okay, no problem, sounds great. Tell me what happens. And we wanted to keep them, Matthew and everybody actually, even Sean, health unit, everybody involved up to par on everything that's happening. I think we have another meeting at the beginning of September. The idea was that we also changed all the paperwork because things had to change. And so one of the things is, of course, we're asking to use the Leo Boivin Community Center. And of course, massive changes again. We're only using it as a rainy day plan. That would mean, let's say it's rained out in the sense of there's a lot of rain and everything. The registration desk and the swag bag tent would be inside the space, the arena space. But however, we would have it roped off. People go in, go out, and the idea is to, you know, get people in and out very quickly and have lots of space. Again, maintaining that physical distancing. But I'm very much cautious in the sense of I want to give it as much space as possible. So it's not just 6 feet, you know, we can have 8, 10 feet. We've got lots of space. And we've kind of dwindled down to have crowdless. So we can have that fun in that sense. So definitely Leo Boivin Community Center will be asking if we'll be able to use it that day. Okay. Number 2, there is the road closure in front of the community center, the Leo Community Center. That road belongs to the town of Prescott. We'd love it if we could actually just close it off. It's the way where people come in to finish their race, but also it allows us to have some space where we can protect our runners that are coming in and making sure that traffic is not getting involved with that part of the race. This is the biggest one, number 3, the south parking lane of King Street. Now, when we did it previously from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, we would ask if we could actually block it in order to have runners run down the south lane. So the south part, the parking lane of King Street. It keeps them safe. We've got the cones from Coco Paving. We've got our lights. We've got our volunteers. So there's a lot of things that are actually keeping, you know, the flow traffic on King Street going. However, the parking space was actually protected for the runners. The difference is that this year we would need it from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., not just 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., because it's a whole day event. We know that's going to be hard for people looking to park on King Street. But we also know that there's the north part. There's also the area near the shopping, the parking lot, the public parking lot. There's small streets where people could actually park if need be. And it's also an event that's coming to Prescott. A lot of places don't have events coming this year because they've been closed down due to the pandemic. So we're hoping that you will consider that we'd be able to actually close down that south lane parking lane. We'll put the cones, we'll put temporary no parking signs, we'll put the lights, we'll have some volunteers. That way everybody is safe. We also asked that on the 5K course going through the town of Prescott, we're always going against traffic. So we tend to be always on the opposite lane, right? We're always against traffic. We always use the corridor, we called it. So we had our lights and we'd have a 3 to 4 foot corridor on the street right beside on the opposite side. So you see traffic coming your way. That way you're all, as a runner, you're always safe, because if somebody is coming your way, will not move, you can jump at least into the grass. It's not nice to know, but it's the reality of a runner. You don't want to have traffic behind you, because if they come behind you, they can hit you with the mirror of the car. And if you haven't been hit in the kidneys, trust me, it's not fun. So you always go against traffic. You always want to see traffic in front of you. So we're hoping to put temporary lawn signs, no parking signs on lawns. And of course, we will be working with the residents. Julie and Kelly will be going from house to house like they did last year, giving the letters to the residents and to the businesses and letting them know that the course is here, and we're asking them to cheer. And we got the Neon Spirit Award. And so we'd be asking them if we can put on their lawn a sign that would say no parking for this event. And last but not least, you have probably received also from Matthew the many attachments I sent you guys. There are letters to the residents, to the church, to the historical homes that are on the course. All of these letters are basically the same letter. And what they're doing is informing everybody of what's happening on that day. The township of Edwardburg Cardinal, when we presented the letter that we have to present to those people on County Road 2 and on Windmill Road, they asked to have their logo on that letter because they were supporting us. And we never thought of asking for the town of Prescott if they wanted to put their logo on that letter. So I'm also asking if that's something you guys wanted to do. And I think this is something we talked about at the BIA. but it's also for the town of Prescott. We have swag bags. We want people to come back to Prescott. This is a big event. If we sell out from 8 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., literally we have the room for 604 runners leaving 2 at a time every 2.5 minutes. We'd love it if you guys, if you want to put stuff in the bags, the swag bags, for people to know about the town of Prescott, that they want to come back. We're asking the businesses to put in pamphlets or whatever information, so that way people can come back, go back home, they look in their bag, and there's all kinds of information about Prescott. I mean, the last thing I think I might want to actually probably mention, whereas before it was a 4-hour evening thing, now it's a full day thing. We want to help out. We want to actually raise lots of money, but we want to help out a lot of also the charities that are working with youth in town. So we're well aware that they're not having the opportunity to do events due to the fact that the pandemic is coming about. It's had such a big impact. So part of it is that we would love if organizations, charitable organizations that are working with youth, if they want to come and help us with the volunteering, we have shifts and everything. We are prepared to provide a portion of the proceeds to help them out. I think that's only fair from us, that the trustees decided that, you know, we'd like to actually share the wealth in a sense of, and having Prescott, all its organizations, all its charitable foundations to be part of this process.
Great. That's fantastic, Mike. And I want to thank you again for putting this on this year and really taking this big project by the reins, because it was obviously going to be a challenge from the beginning with COVID and all the restrictions and so on and so forth. And I know we talked about it a number of times at the emergency control group meetings, and asked that the health unit really work with you on this to try to do all we could to make this happen. So just to put it in a nutshell, you're asking to use the Leo as the rain venue for registration and so on. Road closure, the south side, road closure of Dibble Street East, basically that stretch along just in front of the arena and in front of the fort. And then, and this is going to be a more difficult one, I think, is that south side parking on King Street, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's something that may be a bit more challenging. The one thing I'll open it up for council in a moment, but we still are operating under the state of emergency, of course, and the emergency control group is meeting on Friday. We have been working on this and other items, especially as it relates to social distancing and other requirements with town facilities. So with the Leo issue, I think we'll definitely have to get some guidance on that one and have staff take another look at it. And I think each of these will have to come back for our meeting in September. I don't think there's a lot we can do here now aside from logos and things like that. I think we're going to just need to kind of take another look at this, unless staff has already prepared this and they're going to tell me that we're all good to go for the Leo. But I know we haven't had a meeting in a couple of weeks of the group because of some vacations and so on. So this is something I think we probably should have a little consultation with the health unit, unless there's something already been cleared. Matthew, any comment on that before I open it up for council?
So no, we definitely want to review the impact and how it would have on the Leo. But certainly we also committed to meeting with the health unit and Fort Town Night Run, as well as OPP at the beginning of September, just to review what the environment is in Ontario in relation to COVID-19 and anything else that may have come up. So certainly more than happy to cover it then. And then coming out of that meeting and emergency management, then we'll be able to make recommendations at the first meeting in September, which I believe is on the 7th or 8th.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds like a good way to proceed there, so we can cover all those bases off. And the other item, I've got to mention it because the situation is still in flux, and of course we're going to have kids going back to school between now and then as well. So we'll have to see what the status of everything is then. Hopefully we'll be all good. We keep moving forward. Everybody's got their fingers and toes crossed there, but the situation is still very, very much in flux with the school opening coming between now and the night run. So I'll open it up for council for any comments or questions for Mike this evening. Well, I think we're good. I think you've covered everything off. Oh, Gory, you have a comment? Councilor Shankar, please.
Sorry, Mike, I just want to know, do you have any pre-registration already? Like, I know you said you got up to 604, but do you have like promises from 400 or anything like that?
Yeah, we currently have over 200 that are registered.
Okay. And do you expect to sell out?
We hope.
Okay.
We hope. I mean, the reality is that our we've noticed from previous years is that unlike other races where 30% of their registration comes in that last month, ours seems to be almost 50%. So if we reach actually in the next 2 weeks about 300, there's a chance we're going to get closer to the 450, 500, possibly even 600. And the reality is we're the only race in town, right? Where the, Neon Run has actually canceled. There's a lot of them have just canceled. And so we were able to do something that a lot of people are now looking at us in order to actually use the protocols for their own races. I know that we're doing contact tracing, and that is a program that I designed, and Chris, who's the medical officer of the Boston Marathon, will be assessing it and then using a similar form for theirs next year, if possible. I know there's a lot of people looking at how we're presenting this one because it's a little bit different from others. There's been a few 5Kers happening around, pretty much illegal too. To my understanding, they've not even talked to their health units, but these 5Kers have had like 30, 40 people show up and they've kind of distanced each other and they kind of went, there you go, this is a good race. That's not really true because it doesn't matter if you got 40 or 50 people. The minute they leave, what do? They most likely probably bunch up somewhere in the front. And then those that go fastest, those the slowest, it kind of spreads over the next kilometer or two. We didn't want that at all. So we designed it for stage 1 protocols that if ever there was a second wave or something, that we have the strictest protocols so that we would be able to continue.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mike. Any further comments? I see Councilor Ostrander.
Yes, thank you. Kudos to Mike and his staff for putting this together under the trying conditions we have. I'm a retired long distance runner and I've been in a lot of these, and they're truly a labor of love for the organizers. They take a lot of patience, a lot of phone calls, a lot of networking, and it's good to see that you're well on your way to having this. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mike. So Councilor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. But I also like to congratulate the organizers here because there isn't a lot going on, as he's mentioned, and he's obviously putting an awful lot of thought into this, and I have no problem with any of it, with the exception, as you might guess, Mayor Todd, the parking on the south side of King Street, and I don't think that's an issue that I could vote in favor.
I think we lost you. Okay, we'll see if Councilor McConnell, oh, there he is. Councilor McConnell, we lost you there for a moment. Are you back?
Yeah, could you hear me when I was talking?
It cut out right when you were mentioning the parking downtown.
Okay. All right, well then I'll just go over that bit again if I can. Our electronic information here has been very spotty in the East Coast this year. I don't know why, but as far as the parking goes downtown, I agree with everything else, but I can't swallow that. I don't think no parking on the south side of King Street from 8 in the morning to 10 at night is palatable. I think there are a couple of alternatives though. If you were to swing south at East Street and go west on Water to George, there's only a few parking spots on the south side there that would be impacted around the Mariners Club. The other thing is I go for a long walk every morning when I'm in town, and on eastbound and westbound, I'm on King Street between St. Lawrence and Edward Street. And it's very seldom that I don't encounter at least 2 or 3 joggers on the sidewalk in those blocks. And given the fact that you're spread over the time period from 8 in the morning until 10 at night, I don't see any problem with jogging on the sidewalk on King Street. Eliminating parking that whole side of the street, I just don't think is palatable. And God forbid if we should have a 401 closure during that time period when there's an awful lot of traffic on the 401 that is now being rerouted onto King Street. I don't think I'd want joggers jogging beside all that. So I would say the sidewalk or switching south onto water would be a reasonable alternative, and I'd be in favor of either one of those. Thank you, Brent.
Thanks very much, Councilor McConnell. Excellent points. So I think we're good unless anyone else wants closing words. Just want to thank Mike and the team again for the fortitude and the added effort this year for the event and for the Fort Town itself. Of course, you've done a great job for Prescott, and we're really happy to host the event again this year. And I think you got a lot of fans around the table here and with staff, Mike. So kudos to you and the group again, and we'll be back to you early in September for final discussions on this. But aside from that parking issue, we're probably pretty good with the other stuff, but we'll just take it to the health unit as well and have that discussion as well with health unit and OPP, just to make sure we're all right on the same page and can have the best possible event when you meet again in early September. And fingers crossed, we're all still moving forward and everything's still really good with case numbers and so on. So again, thanks so much for everything, Mike, and thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you very much, guys.
Take care.
Bye now.
Okay, so moving along, we're on item 5, minutes of the previous council meetings. 5.1's minutes from our special council meeting from July 6, 2020. Recommendation that the special council meetings dated July 6, 2020 be accepted as presented. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Burton, seconded by, I think, Councilor Ostrander just beat Councilor Young. So we'll get the motion on the table. Any comments, questions on that set of minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. So item 6, communications and petitions. 6.1, action items. No action items on the agenda tonight. 6.2, the usual package of information items distributed under separate cover. Recommendation that the information items under separate cover be received and filed. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Burton, seconded by Councilor McConnell. So open it up for comments, questions on that information pack. Any items that anyone would care to refer on to committee or discuss briefly this evening? Seeing none, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. So on to staff reports. We have quite a number of staff reports tonight under item 7. So 7.1 is staff report 54-2020 procedural bylaw amendment. This is just to cement in place electronic participation in meetings, basically make that viable and an option going forward, even though the province is out of the municipal emergency. So the recommendation is that council approve an amendment to the procedural bylaw that would permit members to participate electronically in meetings if required outside of a declared provincial and/or municipal emergency. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor McConnell, seconded by Councilor Ostrander. So I'll turn it over to our clerk for commentary on that item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just through you, as most of you are aware, the province did make further amendments to the Municipal Act on July 21st, 2020. And that did include amendments that allow municipal councils and other committees and local boards to meet electronically still outside of provincially declared or municipally declared emergencies. So I have drafted a bylaw, which is included in your package this evening, for approval to permit members to participate in meetings electronically from time to time if needed, if the pandemic continues, and then ongoing in the future if required as well. If people are out of town or sick or have to self-isolate at home, I think it's a good, useful tool to have in our procedural bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Castleman. So open it up for comments, questions from members of council. Councilor McConnell?
Well, as the first person who has been able to take advantage of this, really, I don't know if the audience is aware, but this is an inter-provincial council meeting. I'm in Prince Edward Island. Everybody else is in Prescott. And despite the fact that I'm way down here, by the magic of modern technology, I have been apprised of everything that's going on in town. I've been answering emails from people, different boards that I've been on, I've been commenting on. So quite frankly, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be able to participate in a council meeting.
Absolutely. It's been, everyone was kind of put to the test on this and the emergency during COVID, but I think, we've made it work really well here in Prescott, and I think most councils have. We've been, I think, been particularly successful with this. So I really thank staff for the implementation and everyone around council too for working so well to make this pretty seamless over the course of summer. It's not ideal, but it's worked out. Any further comments, questions on that item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. So 7.2, this is another item coming back from a presentation we had, I'm not sure if it was last meeting or in June now, actually, the time has flown by, but this is staff report 55, 2020, endorsement of Service Line of Canada warranties. And the recommendation that council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to authorize an agreement with Service Line Warranties of Canada Incorporated. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Jansman, seconded by Councillor Burton. Just double check on who's handling this. Matthew, are you gonna take this one this evening?
Sure, I can speak to it. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So coming out of the previous meeting, we were asked to bring back our suggestion on endorsement, and we see this as being very helpful to the residents. There's no cost to the town. It does provide a level of insurance or warranty program for town residents if there is a failure on their property of the water or sewer lines. And certainly it was born out of, I believe, Hamilton and the city of Hamilton and what they were trying to do. And then it was endorsed by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. So certainly that's how we became aware of it. I believe our neighbor to the east, Edwardsburg Cardinal, has also endorsed this for their residents. And we see this as just being a good option for people to be able to access that service if they so desire. There is no commitment to do it. And as I mentioned, and certainly there's no cost to the town regardless of how many people sign up. So we fully support this, and the next step would be for us to bring forward a bylaw to endorse it, as well as creating the agreement. And I believe the city of Ottawa just recently completed an agreement, and so we would base it very similar on that agreement or like-sized municipalities. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Armstrong. So just to lay it out for people at home, it's essentially like, it looks like insurance, but it's actually a warranty package. So essentially residents will have the option to sign up with this company. It's really doesn't have anything to do with us. We just have to endorse it municipally so the service can be offered within the boundaries of the town of Prescott. So essentially the homeowner can contact SLWC and sign up for warranties on their sewer service and or water service line. It's a small fee per month, $7.25 per month. Sewer service, $87 annually, $5 per month, $60 annually for the water service line. And essentially this comes into play if there are issues with either line that would not be covered by the normal municipal problems. So anything that's not covered with, say, a municipal sewer break going into your home, this would then come into play. That's how I basically capture it, right, Matt?
That's correct. But the other point I'd like to make is that they do take advantage of local vendors to do the work. And so it's not a company coming out of Toronto or from Ottawa, but actually local vendors that they contract with. And then when the need arises, they contact them and get the work going and underway.
Great. Thank you very much. And thanks for bringing this forward tonight. So open it up for council comments, questions, anything this evening for staff. Councilor McConnell.
Well, I think in my experience here in the last 10 years on council and before that, just as a member of the public, if you have a problem with your sewer, you don't call your insurance company, you call the town. Somebody from the town comes. Right now we have Matt and Dion, and they come and they check things out and they find, okay, there's a blockage. The blockage is on the town, it's fixed, or the blockage is on you. And then that's where things get confusing. You either call somebody to dig it up and fix it and connect it to the town, or they do it for you. And this apparently simplifies the thing. But I question here, if you do have a blockage problem or something goes wrong with your water, your sewer, the odds are you're probably still going to call the town. So where does it go from there? Where does the insurer become involved when the town decides it's on the homeowner's property, or do they tell the homeowner to immediately call this insurance group or what? I'm a little confused about that. Matter of fact, I'm a lot confused about that.
Mr. Armstrong, please.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the exact same process as it occurs now, our members of our water department, our wastewater department, go out, determine where the issue lies and whether it's on the town-owned portion or the privately owned portion. And then if you're signed up for this program, then that's when you, instead of calling your insurance company or calling a local vendor, you'd actually call this company to say, we do have a break. The town's determined that it's on my own property side, and therefore now you have to come in and fix it. So that's really how this process works. And then they take care of calling the contractor, making sure everything's lined up and getting it fixed as quickly as possible.
Are they available 24 hours? Like, for example, right now, if Matt and Dion decide that the problem is on town property, or I'm sorry, on homeowner's property, then somebody gets called at a bid, Kennebec or whoever, and they dig it up and they fix it. Are these people available 24 hours a day? Is there a call line, or is there a time lag? Is there a 24-hour or a 10-hour, whatever time delay between the time they're notified and the time they actually call somebody to come and fix it?
They advertise 24/7, 365.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I don't have any problem it being offered. Quite frankly, I checked into my own insurance, and it is available as an extra rider, whatever you want to call it, for a certain amount of money, which is actually less than what they're quoting. However, my homeowner's deductible is $1,000, and that's where the difference is. I believe that there is no deductible on their part. So it seems like a reasonable thing for them to offer the town of Prescott citizens. However, I have a little bit of a problem with the town of Prescott endorsing what is essentially an insurance company offering insurance
And that's
with
one-
our blessing, and I don't agree with that part of it.
Yeah, Councilor McConnell, I know that it is a little confusing because it looks like insurance, but the presenter made it very clear that this is a warranty. It doesn't work like an insurance policy does. And I know it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other, the way you look at it here, because you're paying for the coverage, but it's a warranty on your system. So you won't have to go through the same process that you would with an insurance rider. And that's how I understand it. Matt, Kimberly, I think I'm interpreting this correctly. And the other thing I will note, this is service line warranties has been endorsed by a local authority service, LAS. And LAS has been around since 1992. It's an arm of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. It's a part of AMO. So it's actually, you call it's a private vendor and so forth, but it definitely comes with quite the pedigree endorsed by AMO. And a lot of municipalities seem to be kind of getting on board with this now. So I know it's a little confusing because it's awful close to insurance, but I know the presenter made a real point of saying it's not insurance, it's a warranty. And what that actually means in the end, I think, warranties tend to be a little more broad-based and a little more, maybe not as fussy as some insurance. We've all gone through that process with claims, but I don't know, obviously, I have no personal experience with this group and how it works, but I just know that's how it was explained. Any further comment on that from that angle, Matt, Kimberly? I see. Okay, Kim, please.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I did check with my own insurance, home insurance provider as well, and I am covered for the exterior water line, but there are a lot of exceptions within the policy wording. When you dig deep and take a look, it doesn't cover general wear and tear. You have to look at the wording where this program does on top of that insurance. So I think it's a good extra coverage to have on top of your home insurance, because typically I think that insurance companies don't cover most instances where there's issues like this that will rise up.
And your personal experience in South Dundas, of course.
Yes.
Had it yourself. So it is, it does seem to be getting more common with other municipalities. Mr. Armstrong, do you have a comment? Then I'll go to Councillor Young.
So page 34 of your package this evening specifically talks about a warranty program versus insurance. And it's very well stipulated in there that it's not insurance, it's a pledge to repair your service line. And so, and as Clerk Castleman just mentioned, there's, they cover it regardless of the reason. If it falls within their guidelines, then they fix it. Also, it does 24/7 service. It's family owners, rental properties are also eligible. There's no pre-inspection and there's no waiting period. So I think in the course of the presentation, she said, some people call and knowing that they've got a problem, and the program is aware of that. And so they know that the very next day they might have a claim, and that's part of the reason how they set it up. So also on page 34, it does specifically mention, ask your insurance provider what your policy covers under your home insurance, and then make a determination of whether this is helps supplement that or whether you're comfortable with the coverage that you have. And so really those are all types of concepts. Why the municipality has to endorse it is that it's not available direct to a consumer without that endorsement. So that's why you're seeing us and bringing it forward this evening. And it's one of the stipulations that they work under as part of their own regulatory regime, as well as what, as you mentioned, LAS, which is an arm of the Ontario Municipality or Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and how they've structured this program coming out of what they learned in Hamilton.
Thanks very much, Mr. Armstrong. Any follow-up to that, Lee? Anything else?
No, as I said, when I listened to the presentation originally, I thought it was a worthwhile program, and I did check into my insurance, and it is offered through my insurance, but there is a deductible, which this doesn't have. And I have absolutely no problem this group offering it to the citizens of Prescott, given the fact that we're an old community with a lot of old sewers, older houses. I'm sure it's going to come in handy for a lot of people. But I have a problem with the town's crest appearing on a letter going out to the public, which I understand is what's going to happen here. So it looks like this is an official thing from the town of Prescott, and I'm not in favor of that. But I understand that's the way it has to go forward. Am I correct?
Yes, because it is set up through AMO. I'm believing that's the main reason. It's established as essentially a municipal program, but not offered directly by municipalities, but endorsed by them, including AMO. And we've done a lot of work with LAS before as well on various projects and funding and so on. So it's not unknown that we've endorsed LAS projects and things before as well. Anything, any further comments from other members of council? Oh, Councilor Young, I'm sorry, you had your hand up.
That's okay, Brett. The other thing that impressed me with their presentation was the fact that more than 50 municipalities have signed on to this program. And well, a lot of them are smaller municipalities, including townships, like Edwardsburg Cardinal, that most of their residents are on a septic system. They're eligible for this. And but it also includes the city of Kingston, the city of Ottawa, Parry Sound, and other larger population municipalities. So more than 50 municipalities out of what is it, Brett? 440 now?
440, is it 440
Yeah.
even? 443, it's around there.
Okay, so that's a significant start. And as more of us sign on, it will be even stronger. The fact that they're going to negotiate with a particular vendor in town and not come in with their own crew ensures a more rapid response. Plus, we're not hurting our own companies. So I'm all in favor of it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Was mentioned earlier too. We're actually assisting our local companies, as the presenter made that point that they want recommendations. They want to work with the local companies. So I think the homeowner will actually have a big part of that as well. So it seems like it's quite a nice program for the homeowner. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That's carried. So just because Councilor McConnell did mention this, we will be promoting this, correct? We'll get it out there and help the company with some social media or however we do that, just to let people know it is available and it is town endorsed.
So I believe I'll let Clerk Castleman.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a bylaw has to come back in September 1st. Once we finalize the agreement, there was a draft agreement in your package. So we will work with the company to finalize the agreement and then bring it back for formal approval. And then we will promote and let town residents know that this is a valid company that has been endorsed by the town.
Councilor Young?
Just to be clear, though, we're not spending money on promotion for this event. They are spending the money to deal with the 4,200 residents in town. We will approve it, but we're not spending money promoting it.
Yeah, I imagine there'll be some social media component to it where we'll put it online. But that would probably,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's basically the extent of it. Everything else is on the company. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll move along to item 7.3. This is staff report 56, 2020, Royal Canadian Legion Branch 97 support for the branch in regards to COVID-19 assistance. I'll just read it really quickly. Recommendation is whereas the Royal Canadian Legion's mission is to serve veterans and their families, to promote remembrance and to serve communities in the country. And whereas the Royal Canadian Legion advocates for the care and benefits of all who served Canada and provides representation and assistance to veterans and their families, and access to Legion services are available to them at no cost. And whereas the Royal Canadian Legion understands the importance of honoring past sacrifices and acknowledging the courage of those who served and still serve today. The Legion helps Canadians to honor and remember through Remembrance Day ceremonies, the Poppy campaign, commemorative activities, and youth education programs. And whereas Legion branches like Fort Wellington, Ontario Branch 97 are the cornerstone of communities across Canada and provide the largest volunteer bases in the country. And whereas Royal Canadian Legion branches across the country are now facing financial hardship and even permanent closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Prescott supports Royal Canadian Legion Branch 97 and its request to call on the provincial and federal governments for financial assistance and support for legions across the country due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Right Honorable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the Honorable Lawrence MacAulay, Minister of Veterans Affairs, local MP Michael Barrett, local MPP Steve Clark, who's also Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 97, and all Leeds and Grenville municipalities. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by everybody. I'll pick Councillor Shankar. I think he just beat everybody else out. There is a report on this as well with a little bit of background data. Just, I don't have to scroll down to it. Kimberly, was that you that wrote that up? There was a change on this a little bit last week where the provinces stepped forward to offer up some potential funding as well. So if you could just give us a quick update on that.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. In last month's, the July 6th council information package, there was a letter addressed to town council from the local Legion, just requesting that we reach out to the provincial and federal governments, asking for support for Legions across the country in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this, I think the resolution that we've drafted captures the need for support for Legions across the country. I did note late in the report, the last paragraph, that last week, the provincial government did announce the Resilient Communities Fund, which is an $83 million investment through the Ontario Trillium Foundation. It's funding for not only Legions, it's for not-for-profit organizations across the province. It's anticipated that it will be, there'll be really a big high demand for this funding, and only one grant per eligible organization will be awarded. So I think it's valid that we still put forward this resolution to the province and also the federal government, because they haven't announced any funding for Legions yet as well. So I think it's still valid that we put this forward this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ms. Castleman. So open it up for comments, questions. Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Brett. Obviously, I'm happy to support this motion. The Legion is such an important part of our community, and anything that the province and the feds can do to help obviously would be appreciated. But I also think that we should arrange a meeting with President Eric or whoever he delegates, with Matthew and the mayor or whomever, and see if what we can do to help. I think, let's put our money where our mouth is and help them out with something to carry them through and to hear about the other grants available.
So that's a fantastic course of action, and I sort of assume that's where we'd go with this tonight, because we're all, I think everybody here, if not all of us, pretty much all of us are Legion members. We all support the Legion regardless. So this is obviously a cause near and dear to us. Anything we can do is certainly something I would personally support. Anyone else on this motion and the overall issue? Councillor Ostrander, then Councillor Shankar, please.
Yes, the Legion is a cornerstone of all communities, even more noticeable in the smaller communities. And they've been shut down for the 5 months like everybody else. And it's a lot of it is their prime time to throw events and host weddings, anniversaries, whatever. So they've missed out on a lot of local money, much less anything else that would have came their way had they been in business. So I think it's a logical thing that we get behind them. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ostrander. Councillor Shankar, please.
Yeah, I don't want to reiterate the same thing, but I'm all in favor of helping the Legion as much as we can. They're a mainstay to our community, and a lot of events go through there. And I think it's a social spot for a lot of our veterans who need that. We need that location to stay open. We really do. It can't, anything that we can do, we should really look at hard. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Any further comments? So with the support of this tonight, I'm assuming it's going to pass. Well, Matthew, if you could reach out to Eric and set up a meeting so we could have that chat with Eric Place, and see if there's anything else we can directly do, if there's any real pressing needs there, and what they could use for additional town support. And then we'll bring it back to council, hopefully even at our next meeting, because the need could well be relatively urgent there. But the other thing I will mention, even despite the hardships, the Legion volunteers have still been fantastic through COVID. All the support they gave to cooking and preparing and using that as a staging area for the meals every week. I mean, it's been absolutely incredible. And as everyone has just spoken has said, the last thing we cannot afford to lose our Legion. It's a huge part of our community. So anything we can do there, I think would be very much appreciated. And I'm sure we'd have full support around the table if we can come back with something. So with no more hands up, I will call the motion. All in favor? Thank you very much. And next item is staff report 57-2020. That's on the Canada-US border closure. We don't have a recommendation there, but there is something that if I could turn it over to Ms. Castleman just to review the staff report and what's been happening there. And I'll provide a little bit of commentary there as well. I was hoping we could actually endorse that resolution by the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and we could communicate that back to local municipalities and the other members of that mayor's border group that the mayor of Sault Ste. Marie established a number of months ago. Ms. Castleman, please.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor, this report is just an update on the Canada-United States border closure because of COVID-19. The border does remain closed still until August 21st, 2020. There have been reports that it will remain closed longer, but nothing official has been announced yet. We will hear soon from the federal government on that. So I have included the resolution from the city of Sault Ste. Marie if you wanted to endorse that this evening through a motion, and I could send that off to local municipalities and also municipalities with border towns in them, as Mayor Todd said. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I would definitely, I'd hope we would endorse this, but open it up for discussion, endorse this, and then do a resolution of our own. Same wording, just change the wording, obviously, to Town of Prescott and so forth. A number of the other mayors have got this forward as well with the mayor's group, and I think it is kind of getting around. As we've all seen, it's what is it, 8 of 10 or 9 of 10 Canadians want the border to remain closed for obvious reasons that we don't need to get into right now. And I don't think it hurts getting the message out there to make sure that the feds are resolute on this one. So open it up for discussion. Any comments, questions on that resolution and that suggested course of action? Councillor Jansman.
Kim, would you have, I meant to look this up and I just didn't have time today. It should be worth noting though that the county, I think the 2 counties closest to us on the New York State aren't experiencing any active cases as well though, correct? Would you know that? Is that a fair question?
I don't know to be sure. I haven't heard or seen in the news that they're experiencing any. It's more states such as Arizona, as you've heard in the news, Texas. I think those are the trouble spots right now.
They did have a little bit of a blip in, I think it was Clayton not long ago, where they had a small concentration of cases. Wasn't huge, but it was still enough. And of course, you know, you open the border, it would be very difficult to restrict traffic.
No, true enough. I just wanted to mention that because the CNN recent media expressing how much the businesses over there are suffering because of Canadians not being able to come, and Augsburg is our neighbor, right? Unfortunately, it's just in a different country. But that's not to say I don't support this, but worth mentioning. There's the flip side to it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jansman. Councillor Young.
I will support this motion as well, but I'm wondering, Kimberly, can you talk about what you did on the weekend?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I did have I had my first COVID-19 wedding this weekend. All physical distancing protocols were put in place. It was actually out on the water. I was on a large pontoon boat with the bride and the groom. Some of their family members were in other boats surrounding us. And then over on the US side of the St. Lawrence River, the bride's mother was in a boat as well. And I had set up our little portable speaker with a microphone so that the bride's mother could hear me do the ceremony. They've been separated since March. It was just really, it was heartwarming to see and to be a part of. It was really neat.
Cool.
Yeah, that was when you first told me about that. That's just fascinating. I'm sure if there's media watching tonight, that'll become a bit of a story here. And it is sad too. I mean, we are with the bottom line of this. It's not even so much economy and so forth. You're keeping families apart, and it's an awful shame. But at the same time, you've got some major issues going on south of the border right now, and the last thing we can do is open that border and open ourselves up to potential traffic that could bring it in my opinion. So is anyone willing to make that motion that we endorse this and basically do our own resolution? Councillor Shankar, Councillor Young. So moved by, I guess, Ray, you said you'd support it earlier. So moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Shankar. And wording, Ms. Castleman, I guess, just that we endorse this and do a resolution of our own, same wording, and just sign it off after.
Sure, I can add a lead in whereas clause that the town of Prescott supports the resolution by the City Council of, I think it was Sault Ste. Marie, and just change the wording. I can run it by the group tomorrow via email, if that's okay.
Yeah, if everyone's okay with that, we'll go along that way, and then we can distribute it to the other members of the mayor's group as well. As I think there's at least 2 or 3 others that have met since this was passed on July 13th and have provided endorsement for it as well, because everybody is unfortunately, and circumstances have forced everyone to sort of be in the same boat with this one. So the motion has been made and seconded. Any further comments? All those in favor? Motion is carried. And moving on to item 7.5, that's staff report 58, 2020, building permit software. The recommendation reads that council directs staff to select CGIS as the new building permit software platform, including all modules, and plan for an implementation to be coordinated with Augusta and/or Edwardsburg Cardinal as applicable, and that council approve that the first 3 years of the software licensing fee be paid for by the municipal modernization funding received from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. So I'll turn it over to staff. Mr. Armstrong, I believe you have that one. So if you could take us through that and the meetings that have been held with Augusta and Edwardsburg Cardinal.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So as we're all aware, we received modernization funding back in March of 2019. And in relation to being able to take a look at the long-term expenses of the organization, as well as being able to try and reduce the overall burden on the taxpayer going forward. So we took a look at it from the more regional perspective with Augusta and Edwardsburg Cardinal. And one of the areas that we thought there could be collaboration on is building permit software. And one of the things that we currently do is our chief building official works in Augusta when they require coverage, and vice versa, the CBO in Augusta works with us here in Prescott when we require coverage. So having a common software platform, while they wouldn't be all in the same database, they would be using the same piece of software. And so it really enables that ability to cross-train, cross-understand, and cross-support each other when the need arises. So we took a look at 4 pieces of software. One, ProWare, is what all 3 municipalities currently use. It is a very inexpensive piece of software, but at the same time has quite a few limitations, and they have a very small number of customers, which has some concerns in the long-term viability of the software. When we did inquire as to being able to expand the current offering, it would be completely on the customer to pay for that enhancement. And so at that point, we decided to kind of put ProWare to the side for a moment and take a look at what our other options might be. So we met with Avolta, CGIS, and Citywide. They're the 3 major players in Ontario. And really, we took a look at what they offer, how does it relate to the building department, as well as are there add-ons to the software that would be complementary. And so that's really kind of how we evaluated it, along with cost, obviously. So Avolta cloud permits, they have a very nice front end where you would log into our website and then be able to submit your building permit. But unfortunately, we didn't feel the back end of the software that the staff would use was as mature as some of the other pieces of software that we saw. We then looked at CGIS, and CGIS is a firm, I believe they're headquartered in Perth, Ontario, and they're also doing work for us on our official plan. And so they specialize in GIS software, and they've built a number of modules around that GIS to be able to support other municipal functions, such as building permits, bylaw enforcement, as well as the whole planning perspective. You're able to identify which properties have heritage designations. You're able to put your water and sewer mapping in there for economic development. And so really it's a much larger breadth of offering, and one that's not just fresh out of the box. It has been there for a number of years, and it has a stable platform to it. Finally, there's Citywide, and Citywide kind of started with asset management, and they've built on other modules from that. And one of them is the building permit module. With CGIS and Citywide, both of those have their backends all complete and their mature software, but both of them are working on that front end exposure to the resident or developer to be able to submit their permit information. So when we took a look at, and I'm on page 51 now, just to kind of taking a look through what each are offering, Evolta is planning on looking at planning, licensing, and bylaw, but not economic development. There's no interface to the property tax system, those types of things. CGIS has all of the items listed, and they're working on their external portal, and they're planning on having that brought to market in 2021. They have also already provided what the yearly licensing fee would look like for that. And so they've gone along that plan as well. And then finally, Citywide, building permit module, again, fairly mature product. And then they're looking at building on the portal, planning, and licensing, but not a bylaw module. So when you take a look at the financial side of it, you can see that Evolta and CGIS don't charge anything for the initial implementation, where Citywide does. And depending on how many modules you want and that sort of thing, it could be in excess of $50,000 or $60,000 for that initial implementation costs. In terms of licensing fees, Evolta has only the building permit, but it already has the portal with it. And so you're seeing that. CGIS will be a very similar number, and Citywide is expected to be similar when it comes to the building permit and the permit portal. So when you're taking a look at some of the other areas, that's where CGIS already has those products, the others don't, but you can certainly get an understanding of what Citywide will charge for planning and licensing, and they're not intending on moving anywhere towards bylaw and those others. The other thing that CGIS does have is a cemetery module. Making all of your cemetery records electronic is one of, I believe, the tenets of best practice that's put out by the province of Ontario, and something that we need to move towards over the next few years. So when we also started to take a look at being able to partner with Edwardsburg Cardinal and Augusta, we asked each of the vendors if if there was a group discount for all three of us moving forward. Evolta did not provide a group discount, while CGIS provided I believe, 30% discount on the first year's fees, which brings it from $16,000 to approximately $10,000 or $11,000. And then Citywide was willing to give $5,625 off of the implementation fee for the building permit module. So all told, when we went through, we again taking a look at functionality, taking a look at costs, taking a look at the maturity of the product and what still has to be built. And so based on all of those, all three municipalities, from a staff perspective, are endorsing CGIS. I believe all three municipalities are presenting that to their councils this evening. I believe Edwardsburg Cardinal is only looking to go with the building permit module at this time, while Augusta is looking to go with the full suite, and as are we. We see that we can take advantage of all of the various modules. And one thing that we quite like, and speaking with Mr. Merriman, is if you're going for a building permit on a particular property, you'll know what bylaw issues there's been. So, is there an aggressive dog on the property? So you'll have that information at your fingertips. Do you know if it's a heritage property? That'll be at your fingertips, and all of those types of things. So having that more larger breadth of information and being able to track it all in one place is largely beneficial, and being able to talk to residents when we're providing service, as well as prospective developers, and being able to say, here's what we've seen in the past with this property. Here's some things you should be aware of, that type of thing. And also having that water and sewer mapping right in the program to, again, be able to one-stop shopping, exactly what's going on with that. It also satisfies all the needs for our reporting requirements to the various agencies. And so very happy with that, as well as being able to now submit building plans to MPAC, which is a new feature that we're able to do in coordination with MPAC, and working towards that. So because this fits very well with the modernization, the intent of it, that was how we started, and how we feel that this is very well fits into that program, then we would suggest there be kind of the first 3 years be covered by the municipal modernization funding. And there's a reason for that, because we're going to take probably about a year to a year and a half to transition between the two programs. And so if we start in 2020, we'll be well into 2021 or 2022 before we start fully using the program. And then by the time we finish all of the modules, it'll be kind of at the end of that 3-year period. So we see as that being a reasonable amount of time to get us up and running. We'll start with building and bylaw, and then start building off of that. So that's certainly what we're endorsing here, and we're very pleased that CGIS is also, I think, the largest player in Ontario in terms of the number of municipalities that they have with building permit software, and so we'd be happy to endorse moving towards that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. So a very thorough report on that. It's good that we are we're moving forward with Augusta and Edwardsburg Cardinal, at least on the building portion of that for now. So sounds good all the way around, but open it up for discussion from council. I see Councillor Jansman had her hand up, and then Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Matthew, for the staff report. Very thorough, and I'm quite excited about this, and it's definitely a step forward and something we can build on, and it's only going to make us much more effective and efficient. So good stuff. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jansman. Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Brett. Matthew, can you give us some examples of where there would be cost savings to us by implementing this program?
So in terms of just trying to search for information, it is a prime example. We spend a numerous amount of hours trying to find out, is it right of way on this particular property? Is there, what is the servicing? What is the bylaw history? And currently that sometimes goes back to manual files if we have it, and then, or searching them through electronically. But having a complete property profile on when you're going from both a bylaw perspective, heritage perspective, planning, building permit, then really that's where we see as being most effective in being able to support that. We see that our current software package may be at end of life, and certainly having to move to another package is well within the possibility of range of in the near future, short to medium term.
Good, thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Young. I think I had Councillor Shankar next, then Councillor McConnell.
Yeah, I'm excited to see us use that municipal modernization money and then use it in conjunction with the other municipalities that we're surrounded by. It's good to see us using that money together and trying to save money, as well as looking towards the future of working collaboratively. So I think that's a good move going forward, and I appreciate the report. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shankar. Councillor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Cooperation with our neighbors is always good when we can do it. The only thing I'm wondering about, Matthew indicated that it would be a great time saver to have everything about a property on one place, so to speak, or you push a button and there it is. But doesn't that entail a huge amount of time to input all that stuff about that property? So where does that time come in?
So it's a part of the implementation, and so we'll take the information that we have from our current software system that we've been using for about 2.5 years now, and also the information that we've been digitizing over the last several years into our file hold electronic management system, and bring that back into this particular piece of software. So day one, we won't have everything in there, but certainly that will be kind of the timing over the next 3 years to be able to focus on those high turnover properties where there have been many issues, and anything that we currently have digitized, we would put it back into this so that we have that information, and then continuing to provide that history as we move along.
Follow-up, Lee?
Are you looking at having to hire anybody to do all this inputting over the next short period of time, temporary, year and a half?
So I think my intention is that we would use our seasonal staff to help support that. And that's why there's the intention of kind of doing this over a 3-year period, so that we have those opportunities to continue to enhance the product over the next couple of years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. Any further comments, questions from council? I didn't miss a hand up, did I?
Sean, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, the only thing I did want to mention to this, Lee, for the last 1.5 years, this is actually what we've been getting ready for. We started this when you first hired me, getting as much of the data into file hold and into Excel spreadsheets. So the nice thing is with CGIS, there's no implementation costs once we have it into the Excel spreadsheet and ready to go. And like I said, we've been working towards this so that, like I say, I think you will find it, although it will take a couple of years, you're going to find it fairly quick when it all goes in. The one I'm looking most excited for is actually the cemetery. It is an amazing thing when you can look on your system and see which plot someone's buried in. Like I said, I've used all these softwares, and all these softwares have pluses and minuses, but CGIS has a big one. And the other big one is that it's integrated with your taxation, so that the next day when someone buys a property, I know about it, because about the first thing that happens when someone buys a property, half the time they take out a building permit the next day. And when your current system takes 6 months to a year to catch up with the ownership, it's quite a bit of work to actually go through manually and change it all. Well, and as we know, like from Councillor Young, like his property sold, and then it very quickly you've seen a building permit the next day. And that happens more often than you would think. I suspect we'll find anywhere from 10 to 20% more time to use on other jobs and other things with our current staff, which means that we don't have to hire staff. I'd be amazed if we had to hire staff. The only reason we would is because we've gone up to 200 building permits a year, and that's why we need more staff, not because of trying to figure out what's on each property.
And that's a pretty good problem to have if we on that road. So thanks very much, Sean, Matthew, for the extensive report on this tonight as well, and also for working together with Augusta and Edwardsburg Cardinal. I understand Edwardsburg Cardinals approved this evening already as well, which is good to see. So if there are no further comments, questions, I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And 7.6, do have a staff report from our CAO tonight. That's under 59-2020. It was just sent out, I think, a couple hours ago, just before the meeting. Just a number of items. I asked Matthew to look at a few things, and he's added a few more. So if I could just turn it over to the CAO for a little update on some pending issues. And I think there's one more that we'd want to talk about there as well that I didn't see on it. But please, Matt, go ahead.
So I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update on a couple of things just to keep everyone up to date. And so the swing set at Faders Park, I believe, is nearing completion. It has been replaced with a new set of swings, and it's been relocated to a more central part of the park. So where it was before, it was right against the fence, and perhaps not the best area for when kids are swinging to be against a fence. And so moved it more to a central location. Took a look at best practices. You'll see that it's perpendicular to the road. And so that way people can see that people are swinging on the swings and you're not coming on them head on. The other thing that is best practice is to move it as far away from the roadway as possible. And so that's why it's at the back of the park. And so just wanted to give an update on that. Swing sets one swing set will be replaced at Fairway Park. It's at the west end of the park. More towards Duke Street. And we purchased 2 sets last year, one for Faders, one for Fairway, and that will be completed by the end of August. The irrigation system that we talked about at our last meeting has been ordered and will be installed along with the other changes that we discussed towards the end of August, early September. We didn't want to do it right in the middle of the hottest part of the year because it's really hard to grow new grass when you're in the middle of a drought. And so certainly that's the timing that we're looking at for that. The request for a proposal for the sidewalk plow will be issued this week. We're just putting the final touches on that and hope to bring that to the first meeting in September for approval by council so that we can get that ordered and underway. The crane to remove HDOC has been scheduled for next week. So we require a large crane to pull it out of the water just due to the weight. We tried a couple of other methods, but it is of a very heavy nature. And so what will be, once we remove it, we'll be taking it to the town operations yard, and then we'll start to take a look at options of how we can rebuild it. So we'll have several dock engineers or builders come in, take a look to see, is it salvageable? And if it was salvageable, what are some things that we can do? That will give us an indication of how we can rebuild the other docks if it's possible, and also help to inform our plan moving forward when we discuss that later this year. The Noonan Memorial, which was going to be relocated and reinstalled, is now going to be at the southwest side of the playground of Angels play structure. And we've been working with the family on that and making sure that they're happy with that. So along with that, there's a new stone that will be installed, a new memorial stone, and refreshing of the bench, a couple of things like that. Will be under a tree, so shade will be available, but at the same time, we'll do some landscaping, but noting for the fact that it's mostly shady there. The Township of Augusta, I believe, did bring forward a motion this evening at their council meeting that changing the speed limit on County Road 2 from Bradley Creek to the Prescott border to 50 kilometers per hour on our west side. And so we made that request. They also had received a number of requests from residents and people in the area for that change as well. And so they're bringing it forward, and then they'll make the request to United Counties that actually has responsibility for that road. And then finally, repaving projects will occur in the last 2 weeks in September. And then before that, the installation of the curb on Water Street will precede that repaving. And so that when they repave, they can repave right up to the new curb. So those were kind of the larger updates for this evening, but more than happy to cover off anything else.
Thanks very much, Matthew. The other big one though, and I'm sure someone else will ask this if I don't, is splash pad update. Because it was moving along quite quickly. It does seem to have slowed down just a little the last week or so, but where are we on that? And are we able to do some sort of soft opening in the next little while?
Yeah, so that's the intention is we're just moving towards being able to do that soft opening, confirming that we have everything ready to go on the inside, which we're nearing completion on. The washrooms, the building will not be accessible at this time because we won't be completed that, but we do believe we'll be in a good position to be able to bring the splash pad itself online and be able to operate that. We're just working through our logistics this week and hopefully be able to make an announcement later this week.
And we'll add that to our emergency control group meeting as well, just to make sure we get health unit feedback on that. I don't think it's rocket science on that one because a lot of other municipalities have opened their splash pads. I know Brockville has been open for some time, so I'm sure there's a template there we can follow with regards to opening in a safe and proper manner. So thank you very much. I'll open it up for council for questions and comments on those items. And if they have anything else they'd like to ask the CAO about this evening. Councillor McConnell.
As long as we're on the topic of the splash pad, I know the area to the building that they've been hauling trucks in and out and everything is bare dirt, or at least it was when I left Prescott a week and a half ago. Is the intention to eventually sod that or seed it? I know I spoke to Rod Miller and he said the money was there to sod it if we wanted to do it, but he wasn't sure what we were going to do.
Yes, the intention is to sod that, and just because it can be problematic trying to get it to grow without a exorbitant amount of water, and so the intention is to sod. Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. Other comments, questions? Councillor Shankar, please.
Matthew, considering our delegation this morning, it was a long time, earlier this evening, should we send a little note to the residents around Fairways or Faders Park of what we're doing? Or is there some way we can maybe put it on social media? You know, there are certain parties that will probably want to discuss where we put it and everything like that. You know, I'm just trying to get ahead of it.
Yep. So in terms of the one on Faders, it's already been installed, and so more than happy to report when it's up and running and ready to go. In terms of the one on, and the one on Fairway, we're intending on putting it in the same position where it currently is.
Okay.
So that's kind of the thought there, but more than happy to announce when they're ready to go for residents to use.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shankar. Other comments, questions on the CAO's update? Councillor Burton, please.
Thank you. I was happy to hear, Mayor Todd, that you mentioned the splash pad, because that was one of my questions as well tonight. During the soft opening, I think it would be important to reach out to the committee and make them aware of just a soft opening, and because they're a big part of the funds that were raised for the splash pad. So if we could do that, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that reminder. We'll definitely try and do as big a soft open as we can. The one thing I will mention, Matt and I did talk about it earlier today, we do have to do something with Trillium, of course, to acknowledge them. They're going to take a little while to organize that. So that would probably be best for when we open next spring, because otherwise we'd probably looking at having them down, and it would be September sometime, and not really sure that's the best time for a launch of the splash pad. So that'll still be out there as well. And we'll communicate that through to Trillium and to MPP Clark's office as well. So we can have everybody here next spring for a big launch as well. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none. So that was just for information purposes. Oh, and the one thing I wanted to add there myself is we're talking about swing set. This did come up in social media a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I did respond to it. Said I would bring it forward as a concept, and I know we've looked at it in the past. Since we did pull some of those amenities out of Centennial Park when we put the new play structure in there a number of years ago, and we actually had requests about this when we built Riverwalk. For a swing set down near Riverwalk and the marina in that general area, and also something for the for Centennial Park. And obviously Centennial is becoming even more with the splash pad there, the huge number of people that use the beach now. Hopefully we'll have the pool back up and running next year if COVID cooperates. Just wondering if we could look at something like that. I'm not looking for any go ahead on it tonight, but if there's a general consensus, maybe we have staff look at possibly implementing something like that in a couple areas in the downtown, because I don't think we have any swings in the downtown. I don't think there's anything down there now. One time I believe we did, but it's been quite a number of years. So that does come up every now and again. It did come up again. So if everyone's okay with that, just maybe ask staff to maybe look at that for something for next year as a budgetary item. Wouldn't be a huge expense, I wouldn't think, but something we could possibly look at. So if everyone's okay with that, maybe staff could take a look at that for future for the downtown parks. Okay, and that takes us on to item 8, bylaws. We have a few bylaws this evening. First one, 8.1, is a follow-up to our discussion and vote last month. It's an amendment to the parking bylaw. That's the speed reduction to 40 kilometers per hour. The recommendation is that bylaw 28-2020 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 47-2017 being a bylaw for the regulation of traffic and parking within the corporation of the town of Prescott be read a first and second time. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Ostrander, seconded by Councilor Shankar. And I guess there's the report on this, and just to note the bylaw changes that would be affected by this. Mr. Armstrong, could you just take us through that a little bit in the implementation that's being proposed?
Certainly. So the intention is to put 40-kilometer-hour speed signs at our borders, and below it, it will say entire town. And so that way it's very clear. We'll also put it where it currently is in front of, just as you're turning on to Edward Street from the eastbound exit that crosses Edward and onto Prescott Center Drive. And so we want to make sure that anyone that has come over the overpass will be able to see it there as well. Because again, the town border is north of there, and so want to make sure that people entering will have that understanding. So that's the intention of that. And I believe this bylaw will become effective September 1st. And the reasoning for that is so that we can get it just before school starts, and that be in place. It ends up being on a Tuesday, I believe. And so won't catch Monday morning drivers, things like that off. We will absolutely put that in the newspaper, social media, those types of things to identify that there will be that change. And again, 40 kilometers per hour, entire town will be at each of our borders, and then at select points throughout town, just to remind people of that. So there's a reference in the change to the bylaw that speaks to Boundary Street used to be 40 kilometers per hour. That's now been removed because now it's applicable all across the entire town. And I believe subsection 3 has also been removed from the bylaw. So those are kind of the nuts and bolts of how we'll roll it out on September 1st, and making sure that there's a number of opportunities to inform the public that it will be effective September 1st, and that it's for the entire municipality of the town of Prescott.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. So I will open it up for council comment and question at this point. Councilor Young.
Thank you, Brett. Since I was one of the ones that voted against it in the initial offering, you have spoken to me about some recent speed signs or the OPP has done a blitz or something that indicated that there is indeed a great deal of speeding in the town. Do you want to share those thoughts with us?
Yeah, sure. OPP has been fantastic with their support of the initiative overall. Especially recently, they've been running traffic. They've been more visible in town. I know there are a number of people in town that would like to see even more, but I've seen them out quite a bit. So they have been running traffic on the key areas that we did sort of identify, which is of course King Street East and King Street West coming into town, and also Edward Street North. The numbers that were shown, just the best area was actually the King Street West coming into town. But I will note that they ran the traffic numbers that I've seen were done in the middle of the afternoon, where the traffic volume is quite high, and usually the speeds are not that excessive. It does seem to turn into more of a situation after 5, 6 o'clock. But the speeds there, I think, were average speeds between 48 and 58. The more serious issues were noted on Edward Street North, where there were some extreme speeds coming into town. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but significantly over the speed limit. And that was identified as a significant area for concern coming in off that north, heading over the overpass and heading south. And also the other area that was identified as being one where, and we did have some traffic run on this, I think last year as well, that indicated the speeds around 72, 73 average in the 50. If I'm remembering that one correctly, that's a little while ago, but this one showed the numbers were quite high as well coming into town on that long stretch from New Wexford right up to the Fort Hill, significantly in excess of the 50. So the areas that we kind of identified and that a lot of residents have identified as problem spots, I think they were pretty much confirmed by the OPP on that. There, of course, have been other areas. People have asked us for more focus on Churchill, more focus on Boundary as well. They seem to be a couple of the major ones. And since this came forward as well, there have been a couple of minor, well, maybe not so much minor accidents, but accidents in town where residents have reached out to me with regards to the north-south streets. Those are more problematic in the center of town. I'm talking about center and west in particular. And that's something that directed the OPP to kind of keep an eye on as well. Those are problems because people always tend to ask for stop signs, but we're talking about hills there in the wintertime, that would be problematic. So we do have to, I think, look at other areas to calm speeds as well. The 40 kilometers, as I've said all along when I introduced this is not the cure-all. I think it's a good step in the right direction. I think it's gonna help us out. But the enforcement needs to continue to be escalated and continue to be up. And we do have to look at other traffic calming measures on some streets in town just to make sure people are getting the message, because the last thing we want is an even more significant accident and somebody getting hurt or killed. It's all part of that overall, I can't think of the term right now, of just safer communities. That seems to be a global effort to get the speeds down and make the streets safer for pedestrians and cyclists, and not just have them set up for vehicles.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that there's some information locally that justifies the movement. Perhaps it's time to move some of those speed signs. I think they've been in their current locations for a little while now, so some of those could be rotated around town. And I'm not sure what Matthew has in mind for the new reminders coming into town, but probably those lighted portable large signs are something that we could consider putting at the entrances of town, announcing that it is now 40 in town.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think we have to really be solid on the signage. And one of the recommendations of the OPP too came back was potentially even painting it on the roadway as well. That seems to get people's attention pretty strongly too. And that's kind of a cheap option. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect in the winter time, but it's an affordable option as well that could be looked at to announce this. Other comments, questions this evening? Councilor McConnell.
I voted against this when it was presented originally, and I said I would support it. but I wanted Augusta to agree to drop their speed limit coming into town, and they apparently have agreed to do that and are doing that. So I will support this tonight, but again, I have driven around town, and after we had our last meeting, I did it again. I drove around town at 40 kilometers an hour. And in all honesty, there are areas of town that I do not think 40 kilometers an hour is sufficient. It's just too slow. And I worry that if we pass a bylaw that is that people are just going to ignore in certain areas, should we be passing a bylaw at all? I know, I'm not sure whether it was you, Mayor Todd, or somebody when we last discussed it, referenced the change that Augusta had made in Maitland. They had dropped the speed limit from, to 50 kilometers an hour going west out of the dip in the highway at Maitland. And I've driven that a few times since they've done that. And what I found was the large majority of the times, once they get to where the apartment building is, people just ignore it and speed up to 70 kilometers an hour like they used to do. Or if you happen to get in a line as they did the last time where somebody was actually driving at 40 or 50 kilometers an hour, somebody from about 3 cars back was roaring by everybody because you're just not prepared to drive at that slow speed. So I worry about the slowness of 40 kilometers an hour in certain areas of town, but the vast majority of town, I think 40 is satisfactory. So I will support it this evening.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. The one area that I think we talked about this before, and I completely agree with you that that area that where it's 2 lanes on North Edward Street, that's the one that, you know, would be the most that does seem like the 40 could be a little slow there. But the other thing, when I've had a couple people have mentioned that to me, and I've got to point out as well, that's a school zone as well, so it actually already is 40 a good chunk of the time. So, there's kind of another situation there where people are kind of, blowing past that area at 60, 70 when the school's in session. And we've obviously had issues there with even that crosswalk and so on. So hopefully we can get people to start dialing it back a little bit. Did you have another comment, please?
Yeah, something else just occurred to me. We discussed the last time about the inappropriateness of the passing zone south of the golf course when you're coming into town, and eliminating that. Are we going to do that? Is that part of this, or do we have to do something else for that, or what?
Mr. Armstrong, do you have a comment on that? Sorry, you're talking about that stretch of 2 down there where you're coming in?
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I do remember that now. Yeah, Matt, did we look at that? And possibly that's something else we'd have to reach out to counties on, would we not?
No, so I believe from our border, all the way into the fort, I believe we can draw our own lines. That's not a problem. We can reach out to Edwardsburg Cardinal and the counties from our border to New Wexford.
Okay. Yeah, I know, but obviously that one stretch of it's within the town, but when it goes beyond that, it's okay. And so we'll look at that then, Councilor McConnell. That's a good reminder on that one. Councilor Shanker, do you have a point? Oh, sorry, Lee, did you have a follow-up?
No, I just thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Shanker?
Yeah, I'm gonna suggest something that maybe the staff can look into. It's probably not gonna be very popular, but I think we have certain areas, and you described them very well earlier, certain areas in town where 40 kilometers probably will be a factor. For example, south of the golf course there, I was coming in the other day and someone passed me and they registered 95 kilometers an hour. I don't get it. Why he has to pass me 95 kilometers an hour. But so my suggestion would be if we could look into maybe photo radar, this way the people that, it's always the 2% that are ruining it for everybody. Yeah. The people that are chronic habitual speeders, they're the ones that will get warned with the photo radar. They'll get warned repeatedly until it comes into play, and then they'll get dinged. And they've got no one to blame but themselves. So You know, we've got lots of complaints. Oh, we can't go 40. It's too slow. It's too slow. Well, you know, here we go. And then maybe we get a little bit of money to help paint new lines and double lines and all that. But I think that's something that we should look at and maybe have direct staff look into it.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point as well. And we did talk about other traffic calming measures. That's obviously one of them. A number of municipalities have installed them and are looking at it. There's different area aspects of traffic calming, especially within town as well. I mean, even on some of the side streets, those barriers that are in the middle of the road. Ottawa, there are a number of neighborhoods that have those. Maybe that's an option for multiple months of the year. It's a tough one with the plows, of course. They'd have to come out at some point. There's speed bumps. There's other things that we need to look at here. This is not obviously the be all and end all to try to calm some of the traffic issues down. So, Mr. Armstrong, I know we've talked about that. That came up at the last couple of meetings. We discussed this as well. So we will have a report coming back on some other traffic calming measures and some other potential options after this, correct?
That is correct. So certainly in terms of the cameras, our understanding is that municipalities can install cameras, but only in community safety zones. So if a particular area is specified as a community safety zone, then a speed camera can be installed and those fines can be recouped by the municipality. So certainly the possibility is there. And I can further explain and expand upon that in a staff report in September.
Yeah, I think that we can address some of the other options, and there obviously are quite a number. The speed is, again, not the be all and end all. There are other things that we can do to help out here. So and the cameras are, maybe it's the last resort, maybe it's the necessary option with, as Gory mentioned, you've got some people flying into town on Highway 2 at times that are almost double the speed limit at times. So it is a concern. Any further comments on this motion this evening? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Motion carried. Thanks, everyone. So the second is, of course, to follow up the third reading here. The recommendation is that bylaw 28-2020 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 47-2017 being a bylaw for the regulation of traffic and parking within the corporation of the town of Prescott be read a third time, passed and signed by the mayor and clerk. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Shankar. Any final discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. Thanks, everyone. So we will be doing, the OPP will be doing, helping us with a rollout here. There will be some extensive traffic enforcement on the streets as we roll this out. They'll be out in the weeks again before this to try to get people accustomed to what's coming. And then they'll be out after that as well. We'll make sure social media and press releases and so on will be out and accompany all of this. So I do want to thank the OPP for working with us on this and providing the backup, because as everyone has said, I mean, it's only as good as the enforcement. The enforcement is there. So I think we've got the enforcement coming, and it's present even, I would say right now, it's been stepped up. So I just want to thank the OPP for their partnership on that, and people in town to work with us on this as well, because we do need to calm the streets down a little bit here in some of these problem areas. So thanks, everyone. And Matthew, you obviously make a note of that. We'll bring it back in September for an update on how the implementation went and potential other options, such as what Councillor Shankar mentioned. Thank you very much. 8.2 is sale of land on Development Drive. This is to finalize things with Elantra that we did announce at a previous meeting. So the recommendations that bylaw 29-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the sale of approximately 10 acres of land by the corporation of the town of Prescott to Elantra Leasing Inc. That land being PT Lot 0RSPL19 Prescott STPR 195056. Town of Prescott being part of PIN 68166-0328 LT in parentheses. Be read a first and second time. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor McConnell, second by Councillor Ostrander. Matt, you just want to, this is basically a housekeeping issue following on what we announced a little earlier.
Correct. So following or coming out of the closed session, the Horizon report, council did decide to accept the offer to sell approximately 10 acres of land to Elantra Leasing. And so this is the bylaw that is approving that sale.
Sure. Just the one thing we did that came out after we did go public with this when we approved it was a press release and some comments from Elantra and so forth. I don't think we did that. So is there some way we can contact them now and just make sure we share the good news in that way and formally welcome them to town?
Yep. So I believe that's ready to go. And so certainly we will get that out this week.
Great. Thanks very much. So open it up for comments, questions from members of council. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thanks, everyone. And second part of that, of course, is the third reading and the recommendations that bylaw 29-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the sale of approximately 10 acres of land with the corporation of the town of Prescott to Elantra Leasing Incorporated. That land being PT Lot 0RS PL 19 Prescott STPR 195056 town of Prescott being part of PIN 68166-0328 LT in parentheses be read a third time, passed and signed by the mayor and clerk. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Young. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. And 8.3 is just following on from the discussion earlier to make that change to the procedural bylaw. So 8.3 is procedural bylaw amendment to allow for electronic participation in meetings. Recommendation that bylaw 30-2020 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 42-2014 being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council and its committees be read a first and second time. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And the second part of this, third reading recommendation that bylaw 30-2020 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 42-2014 being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council and its committees be read a third time, passed and signed by the mayor and clerk. Could I have a mover, please? By Councillor McConnell, seconded by Councillor Young. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. So we do have a closed session tonight, and I'll call the usual 5-minute recess, bathroom break. I'm sure most of us could use that. So closed session. Sorry, Councillor Young.
Before we go into that, could we ask Councillor McConnell to turn his camera around so we can see a sunset in Prince Edward Island through his window?
Unfortunately, we're a little late, Ray. I'm an hour behind you, or I'm an hour ahead of you there. So the sun is mostly down here, but I'll show you what I got. If you had asked that question about half to 3/4 an hour ago, it was spectacular, orange and yellow and beautiful. Typical.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, nice to see that, and it's amazing what we can do with tech today with that stuff. So we do have a couple items under the closed session, purchase and sale item under 9.1, committee of adjustment member appointment under 9.2. So the recommendations that council move into closed session at, I'll say 8:25 to address matters pertaining to 9.1 purchase and sale under section 239 2C of the Municipal Act 2001, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of lands by the municipality. Excuse me, and a 9.2 committee of adjustment member appointment under section 239 2B of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and that the CAO, treasurer, economic development officer, clerk, and deputy clerk remain in the room. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Burton. All in favor? Okay, we'll take a quick break and be back at about 8:25.